Today, I'm talking with John. He is a remodeling company owner. He is a real estate investor and a cabinet supplier. And he is using content to build trust in an industry where trust is often hard to come by. So if you're in real estate or home services, this episode is for you. John, welcome. Tell me, before we dive right into it, how did you get into the cabinet/remodeling business? How did it happen?
Long version or short version?
Short version.
Just through connections that I made when I was in the furniture business, introduced me to the idea of cabinetry, about 14 years ago. And I said no the first time. I said, I'm not interested. And they kept on me, said, hey, this is the new opportunity, the new wave, a lot of opportunity in this industry to make an impact. And so I ordered my first set of samples and the rest is history. We have grown exponentially through that very first 10 by 10 office.
Yeah. Well, things have definitely scaled, and congratulations on that.
Yeah, thank you.
I'm curious, how did you go from geeking out about drawer glides to being, the big cheese, if you will? How did that happen? And again, it has to be the short version, unfortunately, because you could talk all day. But I'd love to hear, how did that transition happen?
Well, I think like any other entrepreneur, you want that opportunity, right? And so when we were running two businesses parallel, furniture and then cabinetry, the growth was absolutely on the cabinetry side. And we hung on to the furniture until 2019. And then we just made a decision to close that and focus solely on kitchen and bath and cabinetry. So it's just been a steady increase and just, streamlined focus on that one kind of engine, so to speak, which has kind of brought us to where we're at today.
Yeah. And, by extension, you are definitely somebody who services the real estate industry, but also you're a part of it. So I think your insights today are going to be perceptive as it pertains to the real estate industry. So one of the first things that I'd love to hear about from you, how have you built trust in an industry where trust is hard to come by? Specifically, you have started really showing up on social media, and I'd love to hear what prompted that, number one, and then number two, how are you using that to build trust? I
feel like the prompt to doing more content and getting more involved is the fact that we realize that there's a ton of people out there that just didn't know about us. They don't know what to do. When you're taking on a remodeling project, it's a big expense, right? There's lifetime savings that go into these projects. So you want to make sure you're making the right choice when you hire somebody. And unfortunately, in this business, there's a lot of folks that run off with people's money. They do shoddy work. If there's a problem, you're not seeing them again. There's no service aspect to it. But I really think it goes back to always just, if you're a remodeling contractor, home service-based business, just doing the right thing all the time. Not when you want to, but all the time. And so what that does is that builds credibility on its own, word of mouth, reviews, right? So you can go out and create all the content you want, but if they go Google you, right, and look you up online and you've got 1-star reviews, your content's not going to make an impact. So I think it starts by building the business first the right way, doing the right thing, always taking care of clients, making decisions that are based on legacy and not currency. So how long we want to stay in business, and then leveraging the content and putting content out to educate and inform and just take a normally overwhelming experience and simplifying it so that it's relatable through your content.
Yeah, that is such a perceptive cart before the horse scenario. I love that your heart as a business owner is let's do this right and then create content that parallels the service that we know we provide on a regular basis.
Right. In
your opinion, how important is online connections versus in-person connections with people?
That's a great question. When we started 14 years ago, it was only in-person connections. So you had to physically be in room, shaking hands, meeting people. I think the online presence is as important, if not more important. But I think the key is you can reach so many more people at your fingertips every single day. I don't think it's one or the other. I think it's a combination of both. Yeah. And then when you partner that with content, you start showing up in rooms and people kind of already know you. Hey, I've been seeing you online. I know who you are. I know who your business is. So it's not online or in person. I think it's both. But man, you can reach so many more people just leveraging Facebook, Instagram, depending on what market you're trying to tap into. But for us, it's very local. Any of those social media platforms you can literally use as a networking tool just to meet people.
Yeah, I love that. Could you share with me a story or two about how your online content turned into a personal or an in-person connection where someone said, "Hey, I saw
Mm,
your video."
yeah. Well, specifically, I did a really fun reel. One of our team members wrote, and they didn't think I would do it.
Yeah.
It was geared for I don't know what the generation is, maybe Gen Zs, but younger folks.
Yes.
And it didn't go viral, but boy, it sent waves through the community. People, I would show up at the gym. People like, "Oh, I loved your commercial, right? I love your video, whatever." We were at the kids' school picnic a couple weeks ago, and just buying popsicles for the kids. And the guy goes, "Hey, I love your content," and I'm like, "Nice to meet you. I'm John." I had never met this guy before, but he had recognized me from doing the content. So I guess it's kind of a cool part of doing it. Not that it's not the reason why you create content, but you never know who it's reaching. And I think that's the fun part, is that you could be walking in the grocery store or going to the gym and people see you and recognize you from that content that you created. But I think it's creating good content and creating fun content, engaging content. We could go on a whole rabbit trail on content, right? But I think it does have to be good content in order for you to also kind of get the eyeballs on it.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a big takeaway from that for me was that you were able to, even though you didn't go viral, you made connections with people locally, which in your line of work is what really matters. Local eyeballs.
Yeah.
And even if you're not a celebrity on TikTok, you are top of mind to people who live here.
Yeah.
And that's what really counts. So I love that's been your experience with content so far, and that it has essentially duplicated you and your team, the time that you could actually have to spend one-on-one with all those people. That's impossible, but with content, it is possible. So
absolutely.
Love to hear that. In your opinion, what does it take to establish trust? Let's just say, continuing with the online presence, how do you use your online presence to establish trust in the industry that you're in, where trust is hard to come by? What are some of the things that you have done?
Specifically pertain to content or just general online?
I would say, content is what's in my mind.
I like to start with like the root problem, right? So what information do we feel like our potential avatar, our client, our ideal customer is going to be looking for? So maybe those are objections, right? Whether it's price or the size of projects or the quality of materials. If we can create content that comes out as more of an educational type format for free, right? Give them the information that they need to hopefully make a good decision, or at least to take the next step, to have a conversation, is all we're looking for. So I try to almost think about, hey, who's my ideal client? What information are they most interested in? By the way, poll the team. Ask your team who's on the front lines meeting with people and say, hey, what are the most common objections? What are the questions that you're getting when people walk in? What's the first question to ask? And if we can create content around that, they're already coming in more educated, right? And so I think that's been our goal with our content.
I love it. I'm hearing that, knowing the objections, the pain points of the people that you aim to serve, and then creating content that gives away free value to people is a great way to set yourself apart as someone who's trustworthy in the industry.
Right.
Something else that I've noticed, though, about your content is that you also establish trust by maybe pulling the curtain back a little bit on who you and your staff are. Can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah. We can talk about cabinetry and we can talk about remodeling all day long, right? Yeah. But at the end of the day, people buy from people.
Yeah.
Right? In any industry, right? We're all in the people business. And I think people naturally support or purchase from people that they like. And so I'm very well aware that not everybody's going to like me, right? But that's why we also get the team involved in the content, because they're going to, hopefully, ideal clients gravitate to who they connect with the best. And so I think peeling back that curtain and showing people a little bit more like who we are as individuals helps them, again, before they even step into a store, kind of start profiling and saying, hey, this might be the right company for me. Like, they have a team of people that can support my project. I relate to these people because it's not just products and services. I get to know the people too.
Oh, I love to hear that. And so it makes me wonder, let's say somebody is newer in business. Maybe it's a realtor. Maybe they're maybe they're a loan officer, maybe they're in the contracting business themselves.
Yeah.
If they want to still be able to get clients, maybe even in a saturated area where other people are well known,
Mhm.
it sounds like content would be a way to make connections with people that could then result in actual business for them, even in a saturated area.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned two professions that are, in my opinion, are pretty saturated. Everybody knows a realtor. Everybody knows somebody in the mortgage business, right? But what's going to differentiate you between the next realtor? What are those separating pieces? And by the way, not all realtors are good. I don't know what the numbers, but there's thousands of them in Missouri, and only a fraction of the business is even done by a few of them, or more than that. You don't say like the percentage.
Yes.
There's a lot of inactive realtors. So if I was a realtor or a mortgage person, I would be doing the same thing and looking at who's my ideal client, right? What questions, pain points, objections do they have, and get out there and create that content. I think that's going to separate you from the neighboring realtor who's not doing that at all, right? So again, I'd be getting into rooms, meeting more people. I'd be leveraging it online, and I'd be making content that speaks to my ideal client.
What do you do differently that makes agents or investors want to work with you?
I think the key to working with agents and investors is figuring out A, that pain point, right? But B, it's time and money, right? Agents are busy. Investors are busy. They're all juggling multiple clients. They're all juggling multiple projects. So if we can't, in my eyes, if we can't save them time or money, then we're just like everybody else. Now, what does that mean, right? Ideally, they're not running around from supplier to supplier to pick out materials all the time, and they can just come to a one-stop shop. They can handle that project from start to finish for them, for their clients or for their investment property. And because we do stock a lot of our materials, we can save them time. We have cabinets that are in stock. But I think the key there is understanding like how are they normally doing business? What are their pain points? But it comes down to time and money. We've got to be able to help them take things off their plate. Let them basically delegate to us what we're good at, and then let them go out and keep doing what they're good at. You know, if that makes sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it does. And I'm curious, with those things that you offer that make working with you pretty seamless when it comes to the, investor side of things, maybe you got cabinets in stock ready to go, and it's quick and it's easy. We need white shaker. We need it right now. Do you ever leverage those kinds of conversations in your content?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I feel like you have to, right? And what you said earlier is like, what do you do differently, right? And so if we know that we're different, then we want to explain that in our content. And I think the other part of that is getting testimonials, getting reviews that support that. We got 5 reviews in the last week from investors who are just tickled pink about the product and service that we provided. So I think, again, it's a combination of actually doing it, right? Getting testimonials, creating content. And when all of those 3 synergies kind of work together, then it's a recipe for success.
Yeah, for sure. And I don't think I've mentioned this yet, but the name of your company is Premium Kitchen and Bath. Mm-hmm. So for the investors who are listening to this, this is definitely the guy. If you need assistance with getting cabinets and things like that are in stock, ready to go. So
absolutely.
Yeah. What would you say to other people in the industry, remodelers or suppliers, whether they're local or they're anywhere else? What would you say to the people who say that content doesn't matter?
Personally, I would tell them they absolutely should be making content, but I think it goes back to the goal. If you want to have a small business and you have no desire to grow, then you're right. Stay small. Don't create content. But if you want to build a company that isn't 100% dependent on you, and that you can take your tool belt off or, leave the office and have the business continue to run, go on vacation with your family and actually enjoy it, then you need to build a team, right? And so when you build a team, you need more leads, you need more clients. And so I think content is absolutely one of those things where it's not the only thing that you do. It has to be done in partnership with your advertising, with your word of mouth. Because a lot of contractors say, I get plenty of business through word of mouth referrals. Referrals are my best source. That's fine. But what happens when they dry up? Mm-hmm. They may not always come. So I think the key is to just do it over and over and consistently for long periods of time. You'll have multiple sources bringing you business. But in my opinion, content absolutely has to be part of the strategy.
Yeah. I really resonated with the fact that you pointed out that content's not the only feature of your marketing, but because you definitely need your word of mouth, you need all those things. But a lot of times if all your eggs are in one basket, something's going to dry up, and you need other ways for leads to be coming in.
Right.
I guess always be marketing is what we take away from that.
Yeah.
So I love that. I think it's great advice. Obviously, I've got a few more things we can chat through, but I'd love to hear, you kind of came in and had a little bit of an idea of what we talk about. I'm curious if there's anything top of mind for you right now. Maybe what's something that you could leave with the audience? What's something that you think would be helpful? Anything on the top of your mind right now?
My parting words of advice is that when you first start creating content, it's going to be miserable, right? It's going to be uncomfortable. When we first started making content, like I'd get clammy hands. I didn't want to show up. I just got really nervous. It's like anything else in life. It's like you didn't pick up your bicycle and take the training wheels off and start riding when you were 3. You had training wheels. Like you have to start somewhere. And so the more you do it, the more you do anything, it's all about repetition. And so I think the advice is just start. You're going to get better. You're going to get more comfortable. But if you never start, like you'll never get the reps in. This is applicable to all things life, sports, finances, anything that you do takes repetition. But if you never start, you won't get there, So my key is just start making content, and you will absolutely get better the further you go.
Yeah, so true. And I love that you pushed through the hurdles, and now it's like, oh yeah, it's content time,
Just
flip the switch.
Yep.
Here we go, That's great. Talk to me about the styles of content that you have honed in on and why you like those styles of content.
The content styles I like best are probably going to be more like the podcast style ones, or like Q&As. Something that I wasn't going to be a fan of is like me coming up with all of the ideas, or me just kind of just spitting off, right? I like a little bit of a strategy, but I don't want a script, right? I don't think scripts are good for content because you want it to be natural. You don't want it to just flow. Yeah. And the cool thing about creating content is if you work with the right team, they have editors that can cut things out. So you just get to talk and just show up like who you are, be your natural self. So having like a little bit of an agenda like definitely helps. But I personally like when Candace and I are making content together and we're kind of speaking to each other in like a Q&A fashion. So we get to, one of us asks the question that we think our clients, it might appeal to them, right? And then the other one of us gets to answer it, right? And we just take turns, and it just kind of goes back and forth, and we try to speak to each other's strengths, right? So I'm not speaking a lot on design. It's not my forte, but I like to speak a lot about building people, building companies, hiring, firing, all the fun, air quotes, business things that we get to deal with. So I think we play to each other's strengths, and then just use those strategies when we create content.
I think there's a really important distinction that you made there, that you are in your content creation, you're still leaning towards your strengths. While all content is at some point out of our comfort zone, you decided to think through, what am I naturally good at, and let me make content in that direction. So, there are all different, so many different kinds of content that can be created. And, we're not sitting down with you and Candace every time we create content and, having you do funny skits. It's like we've done a handful, and they were fun, but let's play to strengths. And you've got a lot of information to share. It lends really well to educational content. And so I think anybody who's looking to create content has to first kind of take stock of themselves and what their natural inclinations and skills are, and then determine, okay, what does that mean for the styles of content that I'm going to create?
Absolutely.
So you're a real estate investor. How does that shape the way that you handle your company?
If I can back up for a second and say, we were selling cabinets to investors for years before we started real estate investing. But my mindset is like, hey, if they can do it, we can do it. We already had access to all the materials and the resources to do it. But I think the key to serving them is understanding, like, I've walked in their shoes. Like, I know how to take a house apart and put it back together. Not always the best, and not always the most profitable, right? But I've gone through, probably 18, 19 homes already that we flipped. And so I think I can talk the talk. It's one thing to walk the walk, but I can actually speak to what they're doing and sometimes lean in for advice. Again, not that I'm an expert, right? But again, separating myself from their other cabinet supplier, right? Who maybe has never stepped foot in a house or never flipped a project.
Yeah.
And so I think at the end of the day, there's some relatableness, you know, I guess that's the word, being relatable,
Yeah.
knowing that I flipped homes. So we flipped homes, right? And I can help guide them if and when needed through that project, making decisions that ultimately increase ROI.
Yeah.
And reduce expenses, because that's what we're all doing, trying to make profit, right? So hopefully I can make or suggest design changes or things that help them save some money while still putting out a good quality product.
Walking a mile in your client's shoes goes so far in, like we've been talking about today, establishing trust.
Yeah.
And I've seen in so many industries where it's almost like, oh man, they're a little bit blind to what their target avatar really wants. You know, you see people, we talk a lot about real estate, and in the real estate industry, I'll see realtors posting all of this content about like, hey, I just sold this, and you know, all these things about the housing market right now. And it's just like, I scrolled so fast past that piece of content because I care this much, even if I'm shopping right now. It's just like, man, I want content that you almost have to sneak the fact that you are a brand into the content, right? It almost has to be, I am establishing so much trust and giving away so much free value. And by the way, that could be in the form of entertainment. It can be education. It can be whatever. But I almost have to not talk about the fact at all that I am a person of business, right? And then just give the value away. And then it's like, oh yeah, by the way, we do this for a living, right?
Yeah.
So I love that you, number one, you establish trust by making content. And obviously, as you said in the beginning, you have to back up that content with real results and show that you're trustworthy. And it sounds like a really great way to do that is to walk a mile in your client's shoes, which you've done as an investor.
Absolutely.
So I love it. So, John, thanks for being on episode 3 of the Scroll to Sold podcast. A lot of people are scrolling social media, but we don't always, as brands, show up in a way that gets them all the way to sold. So I appreciate the insights that you've shared with us. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been episode 3, and we'll see you in the next one.